Hello. This is a recap of Homework 2A for Stat 312 in the text mining unit, and it's an introduction to text mining. Before you get moving, make sure you download the PDF instructions, which you're seeing on the screen right now, and go ahead and install two R packages, the tidytext package and the Gutenberger package. Once you get those installed, then you can start ahead with this assignment. If you forget how to install, just remember, install.packages is your friend. The dependencies equal true will usually make it work a little better. Okay, so let's get started. Right away, the first thing you're going to want to do is load the tidyverse. So let's do that. And once you get the tidyverse loaded, then you can start in on this assignment. Make sure you download the Sonnet 27 and Sonnet 38 files from Canvas. If you can't find them, well, look carefully, but you can also pull down the text of them if you like from the internet. They're easy to find. They're Shakespeare's sonnets. But let's load it up. Let's load Sonnet 27. The way to do this is to use the read lines function. It works pretty well, and what you do is you give it a path to wherever you put your data. So this is where I put my data, and you'll notice it knows how to read your path, and we're looking for the text mining section, and we're looking for, let's start with Sonnet 27. Okay, once you've done that, it'll suck in the Sonnet 27, and you can say, okay, here it is. And you can see up over in the upper right corner here that it's loaded something. If you double click on it, nothing happens. Why not? Well, because it's not a data frame. We want it to be a data frame, so let's just turn it right into a data frame. The way to do that is with the tibble command. That's a tidyverse command. I'll put a little underscore df after it, so remember that's the data frame. So we tibblify it. And let's call the text column Sonnet 27. And off we go. Womp. Now once you've done that, now you can see the difference here. There's data and values. The Sonnet 27 that we just pulled from the text was just values. Here's some actual data. It notices 14 observations of one variable. The 14 observations are each line. Let's have a look at it. Now if you double click on it, it actually pops up. Each observation, here's the 14 observations, each observation's a row, and the text is the variable, and it's each separate line. Okay, awesome. Now, this is not a particularly tidy circumstance because each of the observations are not really observations. You're not really observing a line. You really would like to break them by word. There's also punctuation and capitalization. All of that kind of makes it a little difficult to do some text mining. So the tidytext package provides some useful tools for manipulating that. Okay, so let's go ahead and load that tidytext library. Okay, we've got the tidytext library, and the tool that you'll use to fix this problem, to tidy up our data, is the unnest tokens command. So let's make a new data frame. Let's call it Sonnet 27 tidied, because we tidied it up. We say unnest tokens. Oops, unnest tokens. And what do you unnest your tokens? Well, you're going to unnest your Sonnet 27 df, the data frame. And let's make two columns, word and text. The text column was the input column. You can see the text column there, and we're going to end up with word being the final column that we produce. Okay, you'll notice right away there's a lot more observations. There's 111 words in this particular sonnet. There they all are. If we have a look at that guy, you can see there's the words straight through. All the punctuation's been stripped, capitalization's been squashed, etc. Okay, ready to roll. So now we can start to do some fun things with this. For instance, if you want to know how many of each different word there is, well, it's pretty easy to do. You could count the tidied version here, and if you do sort equals true, it gives you, oops, nicely sorted What did I do wrong here? Oops, I spelled it wrong. And need an equal sign. There we go. And you say, wait a moment, that didn't work. Oh, I need to count my words. That's the column I want to count. There we go. Okay, and you can see there's 9 instances of the word my, 4 instances of the word for, 4 instances of the word to, etc. Great. If you want to be super tidyverse on this, you can also rewrite this a little differently. You can use the pipe and pipe the data through the counter. You get the same thing. This is kind of handy at times. All right, now, there's a lot of words in here that we don't need. They're called stop words, things like and, my, and such. So let's get rid of them. They're actually easily found if you know what the stop words are. What are the stop words? Well, the tidytext library included a data frames of the stop words. Here they are, and you can see there's 1,000 of these guys floating around. So if you want to pull all of them out, the way to do that is to anti-join them. So if I anti-join my sonnet with the stop words, it'll pull all the stop words out. And so, well, weary isn't a stop word, but I is a stop word, for instance, and me is a stop word, and to, so they've been pruned out. So if we take this data and thread it through the count, you can see that we get a little different list than we did before. So my is no longer a common word because it's been pulled out. And night and limbs and mind show up as the most common. Pretty convenient because this particular poem is about being tired and ready to go to bed at night. Stands to reason that night is something that shows up rather at the top of the list. You can put all of this in one big process here. So you can thread your sonnet tidied through the whole thing using pipes. That's pretty convenient. In fact, you can keep going. And you might say, well, hey, I'd like to plot this. Sounds good. So you can ggplot this guy. The AES stands for aesthetic, and essentially what it tells you is it tells you what variable does what role. The 2 roles we're going to be interested in here are the number of words, the counts, and the words themselves. And this plots rather nicely as a column plot. And oops, this last guy should not be a pipe. When you're combining the graphics things, use a plus instead of a pipe. Doing that, crunch, and here we go. Here's all the plot, and you say, well, that's kind of hard to read because a lot of these words only appear once. Let's get rid of just the words that appear only once. So let's ask for only the words that are occurring more than once. And so doing, you get a much nicer list. Pretty cool. All right, so much for the sonnets. Let's now look at a book. The Gutenberger library pulls things from Project Gutenberg, which is, as the name kind of suggests, it's a open source project to transcribe public domain books and put them up on the internet for you. Of course, that means downloading them works very nicely, and they have good automated APIs, application programming interfaces, for automating the process of downloading books and analyzing them. And there's a nice R library for doing that. That's the Gutenberger library. All right, downloading any kind of book that you might want is pretty easy, provided there's a plain text version. So for instance, if we go Gutenberg download, Gutenberg download, you pick the book based on its number. So here, this happens to be Shakespeare's King John. And you'll notice I got an error there because the default mirror, for whatever reason, doesn't work for me. So instead, you could tell it, go load from a different mirror. Mirror. Here's a mirror that is working as of the time of this video. And you'll notice no errors, and you'll notice whole lot of observations of two variables. Let's go have a look at what that is. And you can see the two variables are, the first column is the Gutenberg book ID, that's the 1511, and you can see the text, which is line by line. Apparently this book is King John by William Shakespeare, famous historical play. Okay, very good. One thing you'll notice right away is there's a lot of header information that we don't need. So we've got the title, we've got the name of the book, we've got publishers and all sorts of, well, no publisher in this particular case, and all the characters. We don't need all of that. So when we go ahead and want to use this book, we'll ditch all of this header information. The first looks like 47, 48 rows we don't need. You can get rid of that. In fact, you can do that pretty nicely here. Let me show you what that looks like using the slice command. The slice command gets rid of a bunch of rows. So let's go from row 47 to the end. The N is a summary for that. You can see that we start right off where you want. Okay, sounds good. Let's go take this and let's unnest it. Let's unnest it and let's get rid of the stop words. Let's get rid of those stop words. So the stop words. All right. And that should be what we need to do. I need to put this guy in, say, tidy book. And let's have a look at what our tidy book looks like. Make sure it looks pretty decent. And there we go. You'll notice there's still a little bit of junk in here, a little bit of garbage. Scene 1 shows up. We don't really care about scene 1. Enter King John, and the stage directions have kind of gotten dropped in here. Yeah, you could do a little better job. You could clean it up if you really cared. But let's go ahead and take a look at what the most common words are. And so doing, you can see that King John definitely shows up. Makes sense. He's the main character. But, oh, there's some stop words like thou and thee that are still there, and thy. That's a little unfortunate. Why is that? Oh, because this is in early modern English. So let's add a few more stop words. Let's call them early modern English stop words. And let's make a tibble out of them so we can use it. And let's concatenate thou, thee, thy, thine, hath. Probably a few others, but I don't know offhand. Whatever. Okay, and so when we tidy our book, we'll do another anti-join. To get rid of them. And now if we do our count, you can see those stop words are gone. King John is definitely the main character. You can see Hubert and Philip are also, and Arthur are important, and apparently France plays an important role here. Sounds pretty reasonable. Cool. Let's save this for later use. I called it Tidy Book. In fact, I'm going to call it Tidy John so we can compare. You know, if you do another book, you can get a rather different analysis here. So here's another book. This is a science book, non-fiction book. Okay, and if we go ahead and take a look at this guy, so one thing you will notice right away is that the nice thing about using these pipes is I just have to change the name now. And I can rerun the same command and I get something different. Let's take a look at this science book. Science book. And you can see, well, there's a lot of numbers and such that are flowing up there. Canals, Mars, illusions. Well, that's kind of interesting. Wonder what this book is about. A little bit of a count on that will reveal. Oops. Count on science book, not tidy book. Earth, Sun, life, Mars, planet. Definitely seems to be something to do with planets and life on planets and atmospheres and temperatures. This book happens to be the book entitled Are the Planets Inhabited? Guess that stands to reason. Pretty cool. Okay, well, what you can do from here is you can say, well, these two books are not very related. They don't have a lot of overlapping words. But maybe if we pick up another fictional book, there'll be some overlapping words between Shakespeare and another science book. So let's go ahead and do that. What I'm going to do is I'm going to go get rid of these variables that I don't want. Actually, I think I'll just leave them. Never mind. Okay, so let's go pull down another book. I will go pull down book equals which one? This one happens to be a good one. Sounds good. And we'll go tidy it up in pretty much the same kind of way. I guess I don't need the same slice necessarily, but it's probably not a bad deal. I'll lose a few words off the front, but it's fine. I'm not going to let it bother me too much. If you care, you could dig into the book and try to figure out how many of the first words are not that interesting, the first lines that are not that interesting. Go ahead and do that. Okay. In any case, I got this other book. What book is this? Well, I think you can figure it out. Nevertheless, let's go ahead and compare the words found in this other book versus King John. Well, okay, how do we do that? We need to pair up all the words that show up in King John versus all the words that show up in this other book. Sounds fair enough. One good way to do that is to join these guys together in a convenient way. Okay, how are we going to do that? Well, I think the right way to do this is to go ahead and stick these books together. Notice I've got, let's take a look at this other book. You can see there's a Gutenberg ID, which we can use to keep track of the words, and we got Word. So what we can do is we can make big, tall data frame. Let's stack them. Okay, so I've now got a big, tall data frame, this stacked data frame, and you'll notice this is like 49,000 observations of two variables. The first variable is the Gutenberg ID, and the second variable is the word. That's the sum of Tidy John, about 9,000 words, and this other book, about 40,000 words. Fair enough. Let's go summarize the counts. Gutenberg ID. And by word. It chunks on that for a while, but let's see what we got for that, what that did for us. What that did is it added a new column. The count function adds a new column called n with the various counts. So we've got the Gutenberg ID, we got the words, and we got their counts. Okay, great. Next thing, let's do a group by these guys and store all the results together. One thing that's kind of handy is to normalize the counts based on the number of words, because one of those books has got 40,000 words, the other's got 9,000, so the counts are going to be kind of off. So if you normalize them, it'll be a little cleaner. Gutenberg ID. The group by will be helpful a little later. In fact, that little later is right now. Because this sum function right here, which will do our normalization, pays attention to the groups. And so it knows that because I'm grouping by the Gutenberg ID, it knows to sum over just those. Okay. And whomp, there we go. So what do we got for frequencies? we can see that we got the ends and we got the proportions. Cool. All right, last bit. We want to compare these two guys based on we want to be able to plot them and compare them based on the different two IDs. To do this, we need to kind of rearrange the data a bit. We need to flatten it out. And to do that, we use a pivot. And we want to make our pivot wider. And we need to tell the pivot where to get its names from. It's going to get its names from the Gutenberg ID. Gutenberg ID. And it's going to get its values from the proportion column, the normalized frequency. All right. In so doing, let's take a look at what this final table looks like. You can see this final table has got words, each of the words, and then the frequencies based on the two books. With that in hand, we can now plot that as a nice scatter plot and compare the two. So the X will be the 1551, 1511, and the Y will be the 1998. This is supposed to be an aesthetic. And combine your plotting elements with a plus, not a pipe. And let's add another aesthetic to label the word so that you can kind of see where the words are. And drum roll. Wait, it looks like garbage. Okay, well, the reason why it looks like garbage is because everyone's piled together. That proportion is not very handy. So let's fix it. The proportion, let's fix it. As it happens, taking the negative log 10 of that makes it a little cleaner. And I want to save my final table and do my plot. Where's my plot command? Drum roll. Wait, I did it wrong. Frequencies is that. Final table is that. Oh, I see what the problem is. These guys actually need to have coming in with, with backticks because R is thinking these are numbers. They're not numbers, they're column headers. There we go. Womp. Okay, and ignore the error. And you can see that the word king really appears a lot in the 1998 book, King John, and not so much in the other. And so you can kind of see King John is, one of the books is very much about King John. The other one involves spake and evil and other such things. One of them involves France and England. The other involves happiness. I guess King John is not a happy book. Well, hope that was helpful. And if you have any questions, feel free to drop me a line.